All right. Welcome, Investor Central Club and STAX AI users. This is Eric here with your monthly backtesting. We are wrapping up a fruitful 2024. It is now January of 2025. We've got quite a bit of information to go over with you guys today and a lot of numbers in terms of our past year of backtesting. So if you do have any questions, please do not hesitate. You can go ahead and leave a comment below, question below, or if you do want to contact us directly, please go ahead and message us over at help@investorcentralclub.com. We're more than happy to get those answered for you. Quick little update before we get into our numbers. STAX did get a couple of little updates this year. We do now have a flow scanner, market events, and politician tracker on our software. Politician tracker was just released on Christmas, so we do want to make sure that you guys are aware that you guys can trigger these. If you're on the mobile app, make sure you swipe over. Each one of these boxes is a different page that you can swipe to from our app. Flow Scanner has been doing great way for us to go and filter through our total amounts of calls and puts throughout the day. What I like to do here is also filter for our high ratios. So for example, TSM coin, DAL are getting high call to put volume, 0 puts being taken on these in terms of the day of today. Keep in mind, Flow Scanner is a weekly type of tool, so it resets every week. Today is Monday, the 6th of January, so that's why we only see them for today. Now, as you guys know, for our backtesting, we're reviewing our STAX AI selected prints. These are considered highly unusual situations that we want to point out that our STAX AI algorithm and has picked out for us to keep an eye on, because big money or the big institutions have taken a sizable position on these that kind of raises an eyebrow. As you guys can see as well from our backtesting through the past few months, past year, these are a very, very high hit rate with a high average return. But I do want to remind you guys, it is still important for you guys to make sure that you take and manage your risk while you go through these. With that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at our numbers for the past few months. Now, I exported this on the 3rd. Nothing's really changed, as you guys can see from that previous page on our STAX AI software. The most recent one is this MicroStrategy print. Oh, there's the cats running. MicroStrategy print at the end of the month. Now, what I do want to point out as well is that month to month, I want to point out that every month you can go look back on our previous backtestings. The month that we're backtesting generally tends to have a lower hit rate. That's just how these things happen to be. There are a lot of these that are being taken out for many, many months or even years out in terms of the expiration date. So if you let these, like I've always said, let these marinate a little bit, let them, notice how they may be holding on. These tend to go and eventually become hits down the line. Couple of interesting ones I wanted to point out. This MicroStrategy, the most recent one, same with Riot. What you want to understand is that the amount of time that they've taken out is extremely important. The majority of what we find in our STAX AI prints happen to be millions of dollars. So when you consider that they're getting themselves into a out of the money situation with a short expiration date, they tend to be eyebrow raising situations. So you do want to keep in mind, for example, this MicroStrategy one, in a matter of 5 days, it did just get its update today where MicroStrategy went even higher, is already looking at a 10x return. They got in at $2.43 per option, or $243 for the 100 of that options. And it already hit a high of 27, so $2,700. It's a return of well over 10x already. Same with this Riot right here. Riot did get a high of 240 here, 100% return already. Same with this one down here, Broadcom AVGO, got in at 7 within a few days, already jumped up to 17.10. So keep in mind, now as you can see, why we always remind you guys to manage your risk, not everything's going to be a winner or right off the bat. When you go and you trade options and you're in the market, it is always a situation in terms of probability. On the left over here, what you can see is Google Finance is nice enough where I can go and pull the current price and use that to compare to the spot price as to what they got in at. So for example, MicroStrategy, they purchased at a spot price of $286. That's what the equity of MicroStrategy was trading at, while the options price here was $2.43 for that strike at this expiration. If you can see, there's a couple of these that have already moved quite significantly. There definitely are also some of these that are down. Tesla over here, I noticed they got in near the highs when Tesla popped up in December. Those are down right now, down a significant amount, but you might want to take a look over as to what expiration date they've purchased for. One of the big updates that we had at the end of last month's backtesting, and also something that I did for our trends video, if you guys want to go take a look at that as well. In the middle of December, we did have a big run up in a lot of these stocks. In doing so, it did cause and create quite a big run up in terms of some of these option prices. Tesla, for example, and for example, right here, you'll see 1217, these ones now well over 100%. YPF as well. This one, EOSE, has been going a little bit higher. QQQ, Tesla. So if you notice these on the blue on the right, that generally helps me highlight that they went higher in the middle of last month. Amazon as well. Obviously, you can see through our months of backtesting, there have been quite a few high returns as well. We've got our 600, 400, 500% returns. My suggestion for a lot of you guys here, especially those that may be newer to options trading, is to understand that you don't have to hit these home runs right off the bat. We do have numbers that show that about 80% of our STAX AI prints achieve 25% returns or higher. So what that basically means is you do need to make sure that you are careful with your risk. It definitely can be tough to hold a full position to these high returns and try to get out at the highs as well. Keep in mind, it is very unlikely that you're going to time the highs of these option prints. So make sure that, we've always told our members, if it's good enough to screenshot, it's good enough to take profits. If you truly think it's going to continue to go higher, make sure you take your runners, leave a few runners for you to potentially hit those type of returns. But these percentage returns, very rarely should you be holding your full position into that. Now, what we do want to point out as well, so like I said, of the month of December, we have 17 out of 32 prints that had a average of 69.73% return. I will point out though that this MSTR print is the one that is pulling that average up a bit. You do have a few in the hundreds in here, but there are definitely a few that are down at this point. And what I want to also point out for you guys too, I haven't completed all of them at this point. I wanted to start doing this where I can notice if they've potentially gotten out of those positions. So for example, let's take this Riot print right here. We're just going to go look at Yahoo Finance. And they got in on the 30th, purchasing for expiration of February. But if you go look over here at Riot, they purchased 14,000 of these calls. So if I go back into the past month of this, I'll notice this big spike. The volume being at 55,000, meaning that there was a lot of interest of that during that day. Now, as I look forward, 18,000, 8,000, 24,000, Is it possible that they might have gotten out of that position on this run up? They got in down here, hit a high over here. Is it possible that this 24,000 could be them? If that's the case, I'll put a Y for a yes right next to it, showing that they might be out of that position already. What that helps us do is it helps us gauge whether or not these whales are holding on to this position. Now, it's a little bit more obvious for certain tickers. Let's take a quick look here. Let's take this CRM right here. Okay, CRM, before we go into it, CRM 850 purchased on the 4th of December. If I go ahead and I take a look at this right here, let's go a little further back. 4th of December. You see that big bar right here? 1,000. You know, they purchased about 800 of them. Is it possible that this 800 or so could be them? Yeah, definitely. They might have gotten up in near these highs, decided to minimize their risk and get out of that position there. And so all this is doing for us here is to give us a gauge of, is that still a possible ticker I want to monitor to get back into, or, you know, maybe have they already gotten out? I'll let you guys decide there whether or not it is a situation, right? Did they take a loss? Are they still holding on? Did they purchase for this strike date well into 2025 for another reason? But just additional information for us to look into when it comes down to these positions. As we go further back, these in the previous months have not changed. There are maybe a few averages that went higher. In our November, 15 of 15, 100% hit rate. October, 18 of 18, 100% hit rate. If you go look back on previous back testings, the month that I do the back testing on, these are very rarely already at 100%. There's usually some of these that need a little bit more time before they do end up hitting. I will also point out by my, with my analysis, these tiny percentages, under 10% is a win, because again, the price did go up. However, according to our STAX AI standards, it's such a minimal win that I wouldn't necessarily always consider it that. Now, let's keep in mind too, a lot of these with very small percentage wins tend to have a lot of time. Ooh, this MicroStrategy one, let's take a look at here. MicroStrategy, they did get in at quite some highs, so it's still down at this point. Keep that in mind. Now, one of the things I was doing as well was I was trying to determine if there are any specific trends that we can notice when it comes down to our callouts. Now, one of the ones I do want to point out in particular is this return versus IV. I know there's a lot of charts, but just focus on this one right here. It's an understanding with options that when an IV, for example, this IV over here, 2.16, meaning it was at 200% IV, yes, it did get a return of 21%. But the higher the IV, the harder it is for it to go further up, because you're fighting an uphill battle. So keep that in mind. Super high IV, yes, you can still get a return on, but the returns tend to be much smaller compared to our numbers in terms of our IV being much lower. So some of our highest IV returns tend to be when they're getting in at a real opportune time when IV is much, much lower. This one, for example, I do believe is TSM when they got in when IV was only 25%. They got a 30x return on that. My other data that I put together from our trends video didn't quite show any other relatable or any eye-opening trends. This is the main one that I want to point out. Of our STAX AI, you very rarely will see IV higher than 1, but that is just something to keep in mind. When it does go higher than that, keep in mind that there is a possibility you're fighting an uphill battle on it. Let's go further down. Not much of these other ones have changed. For example, this NVIDIA call right here. Yes, it's still gone higher, but again, they purchased their strike price for so far out that it is still a losing battle for them. Same with this Microsoft. Now, does that mean that these still could go higher? I actually do think so. I think that Microsoft, NVIDIA, a lot of these big caps will continue to get money put into them just due to how the system works with the S&P, with how large funds are investing. These are safer situations for people to put their money in, so we'll see how they continue to grow and how their returns happen to be over time. The majority of these other numbers I've already reviewed in our previous videos. One thing I have noticed is that we are not getting weekly prints as often. There was a big chunk of them in April where we saw a big chunk of weekly puts being purchased, of which plenty of them did end up well into the green pretty quickly. Only took them a few days. So, when those do happen, when you see a short-term expiration with millions of dollars being spent and our STAX AI does shout it out, definitely a position, worth taking a look at. I'm not going to say get right into it right away. Sometimes you might want to wait a little bit, but if your charts align with it, if your analysis happens to align with what they're saying, those are the types of positions that increase your probabilities. With that being said, our overall hit rate, due to December being a little bit lower, our hit rate now is at 90%. Dropped a little bit from 95%, but still great when you consider it. Our highs on average are averaging 216%. Keep in mind this is everything through the beginning of when we started doing our STAX AI backtesting. Now, because STAX was released in December of 2023, I do have the statistic here for 2024 only. 211 out of 237 prints hit. That's still an 89% hit rate, on average returning 179% for you guys. With that being said, there's plenty of other information. Please go take a look at that trends video. I will be back next month to continue and to get you guys the continued back testing. My expectation is that from a lot of these in December, we'll actually continue to see some of these go a little bit higher. So keep an eye out for that. We'll see what ends up happening with those as time goes on. Like I said before, if you have any questions, any concerns, if you notice some of our data might be off or something else that you noticed, please go ahead, leave a message below, leave a comment in this YouTube channel, or go ahead and message us over at help@investorcentralclub.com. Again, this is Eric here with ICC and STAX. Always happy to do these for you guys. I hope to see you guys in the next one.